So, how are we doing, Alex? How are you today?
Very well, thanks, Lewis. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, doing very well, and thanks for joining me on the podcast. So, let's start off. In 60 seconds, can you sum up your journey through learning and development?
Of course, yes. I joined Learning and Development area in 2017. I was working in the call centre, had the opportunity for a secondment in the Learning and Development team, which I jumped at. I've always wanted to move into that field. And it was mainly focused on induction, so the onboarding process with new starters. So I've done that for 12 months, moved into a permanent role, which was great. So it gave me a bit more of an opportunity to work alongside the wider people team, the HR team. And I gained invaluable experience doing that. And then an opportunity came up for me with my current company, Southeast Consortium, which was to kind of overhaul their training program, which, gladly took the opportunity. And that's where I am now. I'm a senior training and development partner. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about that as we move forward with the podcast. But that's kind of my background.
Brilliant. No, thanks for explaining that. So, as you know, it's all about how having a small team within L&D can have a big impact. So I think probably the best place to start would be if you can tell us a bit about your role, your team, sort of the scope for responsibilities.
Yeah, of course. So the team is relatively small. It's just myself, like I said, senior training and development partner, and a colleague of mine, Joe, who's our trainee training and development partner. Just the two of us. As you can understand, we probably do have to work extremely close together, and we make sure that that relationship is really strong and with us. But we oversee training for our membership group, who are made up of local councils and housing associations. We have 62 members, so that's the main area, and all of those members will get an allowance of training. So that's one area that we oversee. That training covers lots of different areas. We run 35, 40 plus training sessions covering asbestos awareness, resident conflict, gas safety, and so on and so forth. We also run training for the supply chain, so our contractors, consultants, SMEs. So that's another area that we look at. And we also have a leadership management course, which is called our Next Generation Leaders Programme, which has seen 85 plus people attend. So they're the three main areas that we offer.
Perfect. And can you just sort of explain how it works? So you mentioned that you assist all those different orgs. How then, if they've got a training need, is it sort of a combined strategy? You're right, just delving into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So each of our members, as I mentioned, are given an allowance of training, and they're able to book on to any of the training that we offer, and that's done on a yearly basis, so April through to March. So any sort of requests that we get on the side of that could be tailor-made or bespoke. So we have a lot of our members come to us and say, Alex, can you support me with an internal training requirement? And the answer is yes. And the majority of the time we do what we can to support them. And it's a process which we try and make as easy as possible. So our first point of contact, Lewis, will be a training needs analysis form.
Right.
Understand requirements, see what they need. And we have 50 plus training providers that we're associated with. So if I need that support from any other training providers, I can still reach out to external providers. But I kind of can't look to use the core that we have at this current moment in time.
Perfect. And I think that segues onto sort of next question. What's the biggest challenges a small L&D team faces to actually be able to make a big impact?
Yeah, great question. For me, it's being overworked and the potential of burnout as well. Only having, say, in our situation, two people working, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of areas that we need to cover. We're managing, like I've said earlier, multiple different areas. And it's also ensuring that we're prioritising the right things at the right time. And we're not taking on too much, because that can happen quite easily. We say yes, when in fact we could push back on certain things. But the biggest thing, again, alongside the burnout, is sickness as well. So that burnout can lead to sickness with a very small team. Having one person available to manage 3 or 4 different areas is difficult. And on top of that, it just impacts our ability to deliver results, which is what we try and do. We're a not-for-profit business. So for us, it's about ensuring that we develop the sector and reinvest back into the sector. So, if we can't deliver those results, then we're not getting the output that we want.
And with it just being a two-person team, how do you almost spread yourself that without doing it too thin? Because obviously you're dealing with all those different organisations. How much training are you actually delivering yourself? What sort of the split when it comes to that side of things?
So the majority of our training is outsourced to external providers. So we're probably at around about 80-20 split, 80% external, 20% internal. So one area of our training is on procurement. So we run 10, 11, 12 procurement sessions. Being a procurement company, which is our main branch, we look to run as many of those sessions internally as we can. So yeah, that's kind of the setup there.
No, that makes sense. And with limited resources, how do you decide on getting attention, what actually gets done?
So prioritising is extremely important. We make sure that we set time aside each week to have a meeting to ensure that we are reaching what we need to reach throughout that week. One thing I like to say to Joe is focus on the next 30 days. Ensure that we are prepped correctly for those next 30 days. Of course, if anything in the meantime does pop up, we will prioritise certain things. But for me, the immediate 30 days is the most important area. But also, from a personal point of view, make time for your team. It's really important. It's not all about work. Of course, we're here to work to do what we need to do. But a lot of the time, you need to ensure that your team is in the right place and they understand the requirements. And ask them, like, what do they need? Is there anything that I can support them with? So I think that's really, really key.
That makes sense. And what sort of systems are you using? Because obviously you're managing such a wide vast. What systems and procedures do you have in place to actually allow you to fulfill all the training needs?
So we work off a main system called CRM, which probably a lot of companies use. And that's where all of our training is designed, is hosted. It allows us to keep track of everything that's going on there. But there's also other things such as when we're doing our internal spreadsheets, we use a RAG status, so we know what's prioritised, what's upcoming, what's not necessarily a priority at the moment. And another thing called stack ranking. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's a really simple way to prioritise things. So very similar to a RAG status, but it'll just prioritise what's important right now, what can be left, and what can be, looked at a later stage. So for me, with a small team, it's important to try and keep things simple. And not overcomplicate things. As soon as you start overcomplicating things and adding new systems, new procedures, it gets a lot more difficult to manage.
Yeah. And would you say you're very much reactive when it comes to sort of training, or is there a structure in place? How does that work?
A bit of both. So in terms of structure, we have our training program, which is set up around about 5 months before we release it. So we will start working on our new program for next year around about October time. So that involves going out to the training providers saying, we love that session, we want you to deliver that for us again, get some dates, timings, etc., etc. So on that side, the structure is there. Reactively, though, that's a really, really good point, because within our industry, within the construction sector and the housing sector, reactive things happen on a regular basis. So in terms of training, a lot of our training that we add throughout the year is very reactive, Lewis. So we will look at subjects that are really, really topical. So an example of that at this moment in time for our sector is all about condensation and mould and HHSRS. So they're the two big things. So we've run a lot of sessions, we've trained over 180 people just on those two subject areas because it is really, really topical at the moment. But I think it is important to have the structure in the background, so you've got the basics there. But if 5, 6, 7 of our members come to me and say, Alex, this is really topical and we want training, then that's when I become reactive and make sure that we can deliver that output to them.
That makes sense. And within your role, are you actually tracking when it comes to the compliance side of things? Are you responsible for that, or is it each internal L&D team that you're working with sort of that oversees that?
So majority of the times it will be the internal L&D teams from our members, but we do keep track on certain areas such as, say, registrations, who's attended, etc., so that we can feed back to those L&D teams. But yeah, compliance based, not necessarily ours all the time.
And going back to sort of like the small teams, so what's some things that if an individual's listening to this and they're in a small L&D team, what's something they could do this week that could have a big impact?
One big thing that I look to try and do, and I get Joe to try and do as well, is try and speak to new people. get new contacts. So we set ourselves little targets of, can I have a conversation with this person? Can I have an extra conversation with that person? So what I say to Joe and myself is, if I speak to 2 or 3 new people each week, that could have a massive impact on that smaller L&D team. So for me, that could be a new training provider, that could be a new member, it could be delegates who've attended the training session. Get their feedback. Was it worthwhile you going on that course? If it was, great, what can we do better next time? Will you attend another session? Like, for me, the networking option is so important. Even though we are a small team, and I understand there are lots and lots of small learning development teams out there, I still think if you get that opportunity to go to a networking event, a conference, you have the L&D Summit, which is upcoming quite soon actually, like there's loads of opportunities out there. So don't be afraid to go out there and speak to people, because you'll learn a lot from that, and I have personally since I've been here.
And would you use that in the whole process of actually speaking to the stakeholders before training? So even before you're in planning to roll something out, how would you go about those conversations, and who to actually select to speak with, because you have so many different stakeholders that you're responsible for? How do you pinpoint them?
So I have, like we said earlier, I have probably 30, 35 plus training providers, maybe more, who can offer me lots and lots of different training opportunities. So if I'm getting in a new training provider, as an example, I'll make sure that I have a catch up. I speak with them, whether that's in person or via Teams or Zoom. Ask if I can have an opportunity to sit in on one of their sessions. So I get a feel for them, their delivery style, their design work, how they engage with the audience, speak with the delegates on the session as well. For me, that's the most important thing. And the delegates who are attending are the most important people in that training session. If they're achieving what they want to achieve, then I know that I've done everything I can to get that for them. So from that side, brand new training provider, I'll do as much as I can beforehand. I don't like to use the word vetting, but we go through that process of understanding what they are like and whether they would fit our culture. Culture is a massive thing as well. So that's a big thing. If I've got for a training session and I maybe have 2 or 3 training providers who can deliver the same thing, I will ensure that I reach out to all 3 of those and say there's an opportunity here. I don't necessarily want to go down a tendering route when they all bid for the work. It's more of, this is the opportunity, this is what they're looking for. Could you support that? Where I've built a really good close relationship with a lot of those training providers, they'll be totally upfront with me and say, Alex, I can't quite deliver that. However, this person can. Or I'll put you in contact with someone else. And that's that relationship that I want to work on. I don't want it to be a bidding war about, we can do this, we can do that. And that just comes over time though, Lewis. And to everyone out there listening, if you're in that small L&D team, that's what I said earlier about the communication and the contacts and the networking. You get to know who your training providers and new people are.
Brilliant. And when you're assessing a training provider, what are some of the key things that you're looking for? So you mentioned culture. Can you just give us some more examples?
Yeah, of course. So culture for me is really, really important. I think the way that they engage an audience and the way they come across in a training session, again, is important, especially for people that are there who maybe learn slightly differently. So they may be more of a visual learner. Like if they're on a call and on a session, and the trainer is just talking, they're not going to get much out of that at all. Whereas the visual learner will need opportunities to maybe draw something, or they can see graphics on the screen. That also plays a big part into what I'm looking for in terms of, are they going to be right delivering for that person? So yeah,
no, that makes perfect sense. Thanks for explaining that. And what are some of the mistakes that you either see or you hear about with small L&D teams doing on a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
I think with the smaller teams, naturally the reach just isn't there. So example for us, like I said, we have 2 of us working here. If we've got an L&D team of 10, 15, there's more reach out to key events, key stakeholders, different networking groups as well. So I think that's a difficulty for smaller teams. I think also answering questions in a timely manner is another thing that could hold smaller L&D teams back. So I ensure that we have an SLA of no more than 48 hours to reply to any emails we receive regarding training. But again, that's difficult to always achieve, Lewis, because if one of us is on holiday, one of us is off sick, there's no one really to cover that at that moment in time. So I think set realistic expectations as a smaller team. Don't try and complete and achieve everything. Take it step by step. understand the requirements, understand what's topical, what's happening, what can I do differently than anyone else. Grow your own USP. Having your own USP is so important. And luckily for us, our training is the USP to the business. So that is what really drives this business to a different place than other procurement companies.
Yeah, and how do you decide between outsourcing training rather than doing it yourself? Because you made a great point on you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You've got to understand that you are a small team and work within that capability.
It all depends on the nature of the topic that needs to be delivered. It's a huge amount of experience within our operations and procurement teams. And we have quantity surveyors, we have head of technical services, we have director of operations who deliver training for me. So they've also built up relationships with our members. So who may have been working for us for 15, 20 odd years, and they've built that relationship. So a member may come to me, Lewis, and say, oh, is X, Y, and Z still working for you? Because they're great at delivering training. And I'll be like, yeah, great. Sometimes it's member-led. It is member-led sometimes. But we are trying to build on our delivery. So that's one thing that I've set myself, because I've come from that background. I've facilitated in the past. I'd love to get back into it. But at the moment, to your point, the resource just doesn't quite allow it at this moment in time. But also the external providers, some of the training sessions we deliver are quite niche. So it can't always be delivered in-house. So that's why we need to look at external training providers. So an example of that is quite a big thing in the industry is suicide prevention. Especially within the construction sector, for men, it's a huge thing at the moment. So that is a niche market, and we have to externally look for people to support us with that.
Yeah. So from what it sounds like, you also utilise what's internally. So have you actually done like a lot of train the trainer courses? How do you go about actually training the technical people within the different organisations? But for a smaller L&D team, they will have the experts within the organisation. How do they then train them up in an effective way? Because it's sort of extending their reach then. I think that would be a very effective way.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily look at or cover train the trainer in that way, but so let's look at one of our sessions. Tender evaluation is one of the sessions delivered internally. So we will have 2 people from that team, our procurement team, who will deliver that. They will design the content alongside myself. So they are the SMEs in the area. When it comes to delivery, that's when I will take a little bit of a role there and say, actually, let's do a pre-run through of that session, see what it looks like, and then I can give you a little bit of support as to how to engage that person. Or do we bring in an activity on this slide rather than just having 25 slides of us talking at them? Do we use MS Teams? Do we use the chat function a little bit better? Do we use the annotate option on Zoom a little bit better? In person, okay, let's get them up on their feet. Let's get them moving around. Let's get them drawing something. So that's the part I play in that. I fully understand that when that's not your job and I'm asking you, Lewis, do you come and deliver a training session for me? I know you've never done it before, but come and deliver it to 25 people. There's a little bit of a fear factor. It's like, whoa, okay, I can support you, but I need that help in doing so. And that's the part that I try and play, and just making things a little bit easier for them.
So what would be the process that you've explained it, but can you just give me a sort of more solid process in the sense of, let's say you need training on procurement, like you were saying. So someone's come to you, you know that's what you need to do. Can you just walk through the steps that you would approach that?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely fine. So, yeah, procurement, I have a member come to me. You could be my member, Lewis, okay? You've come to me, you've asked for some training on procurement. My first thing I'm going to do is send you out a learning needs analysis or training needs analysis to understand exactly what you want, because procurement's a lot's going on in procurement. So I'll send that back out and I'll say, great, what are you looking for? X, Y, and Z. You will then come back to me and say, Alex, I'm looking for specifics around this, this, and this. Great, okay. I can then say, I have got 2 or 3 training providers that can support on these different areas. If you want it tailor-made just for you and your business, that's going to be the best route to go down. If you want that training session just for you, that's when our day program comes in. So that's where we have all the preset sessions that are already in place, and I can say, Lewis, we're running this session next month for you on this day, this time, and this is what's involved. You've got your learning objectives, you've got your agenda, you've got your outcomes, you've got a bit more detail about it. So that's kind of how it would go. You would then say, great, yeah, you'll register through our CRM system. I'd get a little notification saying Lewis is registered. We'd do what we need to do, send you an invite, send you the link, send you location, wherever it may be. Hopefully you then attend the session and you'd love the training. And then for me, this is one of the most important parts, is gaining that feedback. So at the end of each session in person, we'd do it there and then with a QR code. And we'll say, please provide us your feedback. And that really helps me and Joe deliver the training to the best standard possible. And as part of our CPD process, so 75% of our training program is CPD certified, we have to show that we are acknowledging or we're checking competence of the learner. And that's why we do that. Our procurement tier of training is also recognised by the Chartered Institute of Housing. So we want to deliver the best we can. And we've got those accolades behind us to say, actually, this is recognised and this is certified. And it's a big pull. People want that. People want those CPD hours. They want the recognition. And yeah, that's kind of from start to finish. Doesn't always run as smoothly as that. There's obviously certain things that come about every now and then. But that's what it looks like. And if our user or delegates had a really good experience, then as everyone knows, they're more likely to tell someone, oh yeah, that was a good session. I enjoyed that. And they may come back to us for more moving forward.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And when it actually comes to the feedback, so if you had someone internally as such delivering that session, but they're not a trainer themselves, how do you actually have those conversations about where they can improve and go down that avenue?
Yeah, quite frankly, we'll have a conversation and explain, this is the feedback we've got. I think that's one thing we're really good at. We're really transparent. Some people get feedback and they may be a little bit shy or, oh, don't worry about that, we'll just get them to deliver it again. But here at SCC and on our internal team, we're very transparent by saying, this is the feedback we've got. What can we do to improve on this? Why has it happened? What do we do differently next time? Again, majority of the time, people tend to take it well. It's difficult. Like, we've all received feedback, and on our immediate, the thing we try and do immediately is put a front up. Oh, no, that didn't happen, or this didn't go on. Whereas I think here we're very good at saying, okay, yeah, fine, that did happen, take it on board, develop it further for next time. If it happened to an external provider, exactly the same process. So I'd go exactly the same and say, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. And it may be a case of, if they're not receptive to that, okay, not a problem, appreciate your time, thanks for everything, but we may look elsewhere moving forward. But where we have that really close relationship with our training providers, that's very, very, very rare that happens, especially where, say, we vet them, we have a look at their training, we build that relationship, we know what they can do. And it's kind of that mutual respect between the two parties.
Yeah, and if you wanted a training course delivered internally, how would you then approach that department? Say, we need this type of training, who would be best? How would you approach that situation?
Yeah, and that happens regularly. So yeah, with only two of us, we need as much support as we can get. So it's a case of sitting down, having a bit of time, speaking with internal staff. This is the requirement, this is what we've got. I can give you an example. Obviously, I'll anonymise any details, but we had one come through for a specialised type of procurement training. Not from a member, from someone outside of our membership. So they've seen us online and they said they've reached out. So straight away it's working out who can deliver that training. So an email went out. So I sent an email to 5 or 6 different people who potentially could support. Within 30 minutes, yep, got a reply, 2 people can support. And then from there, it's just about engaging with those 2 people, myself, but also the person that wants the training. And we have regular Teams catch-ups to understand that we are hitting the brief of what they want. That's the most important thing for me, is making sure that those conversations that are held are productive and we're not just going off and saying, yeah, we'll deliver that training without getting the input from the people that need it.
Perfect. No, that makes sense. And with being such a small team, are there any incentives that comes to mind that you think, yeah, really proud of what we actually achieved there?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I nominated us for not-for-profit learning and development team of the year. I thought we'd done an amazing job. We got through to the finals, actually.
Wow, amazing.
It was really good, really happy. I couldn't make the day because I was on holiday, unfortunately. We didn't win. We were up against some really, really big names in the industry. But it was good just to be a part of it and say, actually, we can do it, even though we are a small team. And that's one thing I'll say to everyone out there who has really, really small L&D teams, is that you can achieve it if you want to achieve it. You've got to put in the work, you've got to put in the effort, but you will get there.
Yeah, so what it sounds like is when you are a small L&D team, you've just got to really utilise the other people and other teams and whether it's another company. You've just got to understand that you need to reach out to them, and you need to, even though you are a small team, you're a big team, and you need to extend that team.
Yeah, exactly that. And I don't class us as just Joe and I. I class us as an extension of all our training providers, all of our members, L&D teams and people teams. That's who we are. And it is so important. And the big thing for me is that where we have 62 members now, for me, I can go out and I can go and speak to the people teams across the southeast of England, sit in their offices, do some work, have a catch up, get to know what they need. And that all comes down to what I said throughout this podcast is networking. It's getting those key contacts. It's talking to people. And I know it's not for everyone. I totally get that. But sometimes you've got to just go out your comfort zone a little bit and you'll reap the rewards off the back of it.
Brilliant. Well, Alex, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really insightful. Really enjoyed this discussion. So thank you.
No problem at all. Thanks, Lewis.
Cheers.